Today I'm going to attempt a functional art piece that doubles as a dining room farmhouse table set. I completed 2 benches already, and now I'm going to be working on the table itself. We are using a Shou Sugi Ban technique to burn the grains in the table, and it has kind of a zebra striped look to it, and I will show you the 2 benches that I've already completed. The bench in the front was my first attempt using the Shou Sugi Ban technique, and it didn't turn out too bad, so I went ahead and did its matching bench for the other side, which is this one back here. Turned out a little bit more defined than the first bench, now that I have a little bit more experience under my belt. And now we're going to be building the matching table that goes with it. So I will show you each of the steps in my process, and maybe you can try one of these techniques on your own. My first step was to pick out the wood that I wanted to use. I did a lot of research on it, and I decided to go with Douglas fir. Number one, just because I liked the grain patterns in it. I think that those will burn really nicely. I did some research on which types of wood are the best to do this Shou Sugi Ban technique on. Douglas fir was not one of the top options. However, as far as softwood goes, it's one of the more durable to make furniture out of, and it still had a really pretty grain and it burns nicely. So that was the first step. The second step is to sand down the wood so it's usable. You are going to have a lot of rough spots to it. That's why it's not ideal if you're looking for fine finished furniture. It really is just a functional art piece. There is going to be tool marks in your wood when you're finished, so it is not going to be a glass-like finish. So if that's what you're looking for, this is not the project that you want to do. After sanding the wood down with about an 80 grit, I did use a finishing sander for that. We are going to be doing the burning techniques next. Obviously, there is a water bottle right next to the torch that we plan on using for this project. You want to keep that on hand just in case things get a little out of control with your burning. This is what the wood looks like right after being torched. We spent a little bit more time on all of the knots. It took a little bit longer for each of the knots to get burned, but we needed to make sure they were nice and black so it would turn out pretty well. This is before we do any brushing on it. All we've done so far is sanded it and then used the torch on it. One thing I did learn is probably not the best technique to be used in Phoenix in the middle of the summer. For our next step, we're going to lightly brush the wood, going with the grain with this first nylon brush here. And that will just be a light brushing. When we're finished with that step, we're going to use these more pointed and more rigid brushes. You can use wire or stainless steel. I like the brass brush personally because it leaves fewer tool marks in there and less to sand later. When we're finished with brushing with all 3 of these brushes, we're going to use a power tool and a wheel to finish it off with approximately an 80 grit nylon wheel. This is what the pieces look like after the light brushing with the nylon brush. Alright, this is what it looks like after you've used the wire brush. So you can get a little bit deeper in between the grains. I know it doesn't look very pretty yet. You can kind of see the grains coming through, but it's going to really pop once you use the wheel and the power tool. For the next step, we're going to use this 80 grit nylon wheel attached to a power drill. And because it's going to be kicking up a lot of sawdust and ash when we're doing this, we're going to use one of these protective masks so we don't breathe in all of that gunk. This is what it looks like after you take the power tool with the nylon wheel to it. This is what all of the pieces look like after using the power tool. So all that's left is the charred wood grains. And the next step is going to be putting it all together into a table and then staining it and sealing it.